This play is sponsored by the California Civil Liberties Public Education Program, a state-funded grant project of the California State Library.
This is LA Theater Works. I'm Susan Lowenberg. At the conclusion of World War II, after Germany's surrender on May 8, 1945, Allied forces co-signed the London Charter, which called for an international military tribunal to prosecute the major war criminals from the European Axis powers. These tribunals were collectively referred to as the Nuremberg trials, named after the town in Germany where they were held. Once the major figureheads of the war had been tried and sentenced, there remained the task of sentencing the lower-ranking officials, doctors, judges, industrialists, generals, and more. Of these 12 trials, one in particular became the basis for Abby Mann's legendary Judgment at Nuremberg. Mann's fictionalized account follows the efforts of American prosecutors to convict and punish German judges on counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. And now, LA Theater Works presents Judgment at Nuremberg by Abby Mann, starring James Morrison, Harry Hamlin, David Selby, Alan Mandell, and John Vickery.
On January 1st, 2001, then President Clinton signed the Rome Treaty for an international criminal court. He said, "In taking this action, we reaffirm our support for international accountability and for bringing to justice perpetrators of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity based on our involvement in the Nuremberg tribunals that brought Nazi war criminals to justice." Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina called Mr. Clinton's decision as outrageous as it is inexplicable. "I have a message for the outgoing president. This decision will not stand." Many others echoed Senator Helms' objections, including President H.W. Bush. Their reason was it could inhibit the ability of the United States to use its military to meet alliance obligations and participate in multinational operations. The first of the Nuremberg trials were concluded on October 1st, 1946. Hermann Goering, Reichsmarshal, charged with conspiracy, crimes against peace, war crimes, crimes against humanity. The verdict, guilty on all counts. The sentence, death by hanging. Rudolph Hess, Deputy Führer. Verdict, guilty on 2 counts. Sentence, life imprisonment. Joachim von Ribbentrop, Reich Minister for Foreign Affairs. Verdict, guilty on all counts. Sentence, death by hanging. The conclusion of the trial of 22 top Nazis accused of war crimes resulted in the following. 12 were sentenced to death, 3 were acquitted, 7 received prison sentences ranging from 10 years to life. October 16, 1946, the sentences of death were carried out. Julius Streicher, von Ribbentrop, Wilhelm Keitel, Ernst Kaltenbrenner, all except Hermann Goering, who cheated the hangman by taking his own life. The first of the Nuremberg trials were over. Still to come were 12 more trials of 177 diplomats, generals, SS officers, high Nazi officials, doctors, judges, directors of IG Farben, leading German business and professional men whose cooperation was essential to the success of the Nazi conspiracy.
Judge Haywood?
Yes.
Colonel Parker.
How do you do?
This is General Merrin.
Welcome.
And you know Captain Byers.
Yes.
Ever been to Germany before?
Just once, World War I.
How are your quarters? Comfortable?
I think the state of South Carolina would be comfortable in them.
What do you mean?
They've given me this enormous house. I get lost trying to find my way to the kitchen. And 3 servants.
When the government does something, it does it right. You know that.
I don't need all this. And the 3 servants make me feel like a damn fool.
We do it for them, too. If they work for you, they eat.
Well, I guess I need 3 servants then, Captain Byers.
We're lucky to have you.
I'm sure you are.
I beg your pardon.
Listen, Colonel, I wasn't the first choice for this job. or even the 10th. I know it, you know it.
What do you mean?
The war's been over for 2 years. The big ones, Goering, Hess, and Speer, have been tried. You're down to trying the businessmen, doctors, and what I'm sitting in on, the judges. A lot of people think they shouldn't be tried at all.
So?
So there's a hell of a lack of candidates for this job. You even had to beat the backwoods of North Carolina to come up with a hick like me.
I hope you're not sorry you came.
No, I'm not sorry. I want you to know that I know a hawk from a handsaw. The only thing I feel I don't know anything about is international law.
Who does? Except a few professors at Columbia. And I'm not sure they know.
Well, I hope I'm up to it.
Of course you are. Relax, enjoy things while you can. I'm sure you'll get used to living in a big house and having 3 servants. Captain Byers showed Judge Haywood around Nuremberg. It's a fascinating place. Goes back to 1219. Enjoy the lakes and the greenery. They have no politics.
I would like to see something of the town, something of the people.
Nuremberg is yours, sir. What there is left of it.
Well, Tad, what do you think?
He's right. He's not up to it.
This is the main street. It's called Carolina Strasse, sir.
You're a career army, aren't you, Captain?
Yes, sir.
What's your first name?
Harrison. Harry.
Well, Harry, you say I'm not Army, and this formality makes me a little uncomfortable. You think it'd be too much of an infraction of the rules for you to call me Judge or Dan or something?
Yes, sir. Judge.
How long have you been here, Harry?
2 years.
2 years. It's a long time.
Yes, sir. Judge.
You have any friends here?
Sure.
German friends?
They're too friendly to be friends.
A girl?
Yeah. Her parents were Nazis, but she was 8 years old when they came to power.
I didn't ask that.
I know, but maybe you were thinking it. It's natural to think about it. I thought if anybody was going to indoctrinate her, it might as well be me.
You don't care much for this assignment, do you?
Not much.
Don't you think the trials are important?
My feelings are the same as Churchill's. We should have held a military trial and shot them.
If they were found guilty.
After they were found guilty, then we can start getting ready for the next war.
And what war might that be?
The war with the Russians, of course.
I see.
Well, you're in the heart of what used to be Nuremberg's business section. You know, Nuremberg was a great toy center.
Really?
It was also the anti-Semitism center. This is where the first authorized violence against the Jews happened.
Authorized?
Hitler and his government tried an experiment. They decided on a 24-hour boycott of Jewish stores. They wanted to see whether the average German would protest or if they would be taken to task by the newspapers and the radio programs. It was a great success, better than they ever dreamed. The SS painted the shop windows and made the Jewish proprietors come out and clean the sidewalks with a toothbrush, no less.
Hard to believe it really happened, isn't it?
Not for me. I grew up in Texas. I've known these people. They speak another language and dress differently, but I've known them before. They're just like people in my hometown, people in my own unit.
You're trying to say that what happened here could happen at home?
Can I imagine that the people there would have done things like this if there wasn't a government to stop them and they might be punished? I guess a day doesn't pass when I don't wonder about that. Sorry if I've upset you, but people with my shade of skin react differently to what happened here than people with your shade of skin.
I understand.
Come on, I'll take you to Zeppelin Field where they held the rallies. The tribunal is now in session. Presiding the Honorable Justices Daniel Haywood, Curtis Ives, and Kenneth Norris. God save the United States of America and this honorable tribunal.
The tribunal will arraign the defendants. The microphone will now be placed in front of the defendant, Emil Hahn. Emil Hahn, are you represented by counsel before this tribunal?
Not guilty.
The question is, are you represented by counsel before this tribunal?
I am represented.
How do you plead to the charges and specifications set forth in the indictment against you? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty. On all counts.
You may be seated. Frederick Hoffstetter, are you represented by counsel before this tribunal?
Yes, Your Honor. I am represented by counsel.
How do you plead to the charges and specifications set forth in the indictment against you? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
You may be seated. Werner Lampe, are you represented by counsel before this tribunal?
Counsel? Yes.
How do you plead to the charges and specifications set forth in the indictment against you? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
You may be seated. Ernst Janning, are you represented by counsel before this tribunal? Ernst Janning, are you represented by counsel before this tribunal?
Your Honor, I am Oscar Rolf. I represent the defendant.
Ernst Janning, how do you plead to the charges and specifications set forth in the indictment against you? Guilty or not guilty?
May I address the court?
Yes.
The defendant does not recognize the authority of this tribunal and wishes to lodge a formal protest in lieu of pleading.
A plea of not guilty will be entered. Prosecution will make its opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the case is unusual in that the defendants are charged with crimes committed in the name of the law. These men, together with their deceased or fugitive colleagues, are the embodiment of what passed for justice in the Third Reich. As judges on the bench, you will be sitting in judgment of judges in the dock. This is as it should be, for only a judge knows how much more a court is than a courtroom. It is a process and a spirit. It is the house of law. The defendants knew this, too. They knew courtrooms well. They sat in their black robes, and they distorted, and they perverted, and they destroyed justice and law in Germany. They are, perhaps more than others, guilty of complicity in murders, tortures, atrocities, the most cruel and devastating this world has ever seen. Their minds were not warped at an early age. They had attained maturity long before Hitler's rise to power. They embraced the ideologies of the Third Reich as educated adults. They, most of all, should have valued justice. Here, they will receive the justice they denied others. They will be judged according to the evidence presented in this courtroom. The prosecution asks nothing more.
Herr Rolf will make the opening statement for the defense.
May it please the tribunal. It is not only a great honor, but also a great challenge for an advocate to aid this tribunal in its task. The avowed purpose of this tribunal is to find a code of justice the whole world will be responsible to. How will this code be established? It will be established in a clear, honest evaluation of the responsibility for the crimes in the indictment stated by the prosecution. In the words of the great American jurist Oliver Wendell Holmes, this responsibility will not be found only in documents. It will be found in considerations of a political or social nature. It will be found, most of all, in the character of men. What is the character of Ernst Janning? Let us examine his life for a moment. Following World War I, he became one of the leaders of the Weimar Republic and was one of the framers of its democratic constitution. He became Minister of Justice in Germany in 1935, a position the equivalent of the Attorney General of the United States. Finally, in a Reichstag speech of 26 April 1942, Hitler attacked Janning and forced him to resign. If Ernst Janning is to be found guilty, certain implications must arise. A judge does not make the law. He carries out the laws of his country, be it a democracy or a dictatorship. The statement, "My country, right or wrong," was expressed by a great American patriot. It is no less true for a German patriot. Should Ernst Janning have carried out the laws of his country? Or should he have refused to carry them out and become a traitor? The defense is dedicated to finding responsibility, as is the prosecution. For it is not only Ernst Janning who is on trial here, it is the German people.
Shakes you up a bit, doesn't it, Curtis? These men were judges just like we are. Now they're sitting as defendants accused of crimes.
We'll see if they're criminals or not.
What do you mean?
When you've been here a while, you'll see it's not so cut and dried.
Hahn looks at us as though we're the criminals.
Lampa doesn't seem to know what's going on.
Janning does. He refuses to acknowledge the authority of this court, and a lot of people think he's right.
I got a hold of some of the books of Ernst Janning.
Are they translated into English?
Into a lot of languages, Ken. His textbooks are still used in universities all over the world. I had no idea how important he was until I got a hold of this.
The Profession of Law by Ernst Janning. Is it interesting?
Well, they're more than that. They're really a picture of an era in Germany. Its hopes, its aspirations. They weren't so different from ours, really.
A lot of people are upset about him being a part of all this.
Now listen to this. On the signing of the Weimar Constitution, he wrote, "Now we can look forward to a Germany without guns and bloodshed. A Germany of justice, where men can live instead of die. A Germany of purpose, of freedom, of humanity. A Germany that calls for the best in men." How could a man who wrote words like these be a part of sterilizations and murders? How could he be?
Parker says he was.
I know. But the prosecution is going to have to prove every inch of its allegations against Janning. And to tell you the truth, I'm very uneasy sitting in judgment on a man of his stature.
Well, that's why we're here. We'll be talking about this until the end of the trial. Now, what are you fellows up to this weekend? My wife is planning a little get-together at the Grand Hotel Saturday night.
My wife and I are going to Liege.
There's nothing in Liege. I've been there.
My son was in the 101st. He's buried in the American cemetery outside Liege.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
You'll come, won't you, Dan?
Sure.
My wife was thinking she might bring someone along, perhaps one of the women who work here at the tribunal. She was concerned you might be lonely. We know you lost your wife recently.
I don't think I'm up to it right now, Curtis. Maybe sometime later.
Well, just let us know. I've got to get back. We have a dinner date. You coming along, Ken?
Yep. What about you, Dan?
I think I'll stay here a little while.
Are they treating you all right?
Yes, they are treating me all right.
We still have some friends who have contact with the American authorities. I can tell them if they're not treating you all
They're
right.
treating me all right.
Herr Janning, we are both in an embarrassing position. I know you didn't want me as your counsel. I know you didn't want anyone. I want to tell you something. Will you listen to me? I intend to represent your case with complete dignity. There will be no appeal to sentiment. There will be no placing yourself at the mercy of the court. The game will be played according to their own rules. We will see if they have the courage to sit in judgment on a man like you. Herr Janning, I have followed your career since I was a boy studying at the university. It was because I thought I might be able to achieve some of the things that you did that saw me through the war.
How old are you?
32.
32. Are you finished?
Yes.
I must go.
Would you state your name to the tribunal, please?
Karl Wickert.
Did you know the defendant Ernst Janning?
Yes, I know Ernst Janning.
Will you tell us in what capacity?
We served in the Ministry of Justice together until 1935.
Did you know him before that?
Yes. He was a law student of mine.
Did you know him well?
Yes.
Was he a protege of yours?
Yes.
Dr. Wickert, will you tell us, from your own experience, the position of the judge in Germany prior to the advent of Adolf Hitler?
The position of the judge was one of complete independence.
And did this system change after the Nazis came to power?
Judges became subject to something outside of objective justice. They became subject to what was necessary for the protection of the country.
Would you explain this, please?
The first consideration of the judge became the punishment of acts against the state, rather than the protection of the accused.
What other changes were there?
The right to appeal was eliminated. The Supreme Court of the Reich was abolished. The concept of race was made a legal concept for the first time.
What was the result of this change?
The result was to hand over the entire judicial system of the country into the hands of the dictator.
Dr. Wickert, I would like to ask you a question. Did the judges protest these laws abridging that independence?
A few of them did. Those who did resigned or were forced to resign. Others adapted themselves to the new situation.
Do you think that the judiciary was aware of the consequences to come?
At first, perhaps not. Then it became clear to anyone who had eyes and ears.
Thank you.
Dr. Wickert, would you discuss for us the changes in criminal law that took place under the Third Reich?
Special courts were established. These courts impose the death penalty or heavy sentences whether the accused was guilty or not, only because they were Jews or Poles or politically unreliable. Also, novel National Socialist measures were introduced. Among them, sexual sterilization of those characterized as asocial. All these things were done under the authority of Ernst Janning as Minister of Justice.
Dr. Wickert, did it become necessary for judges to wear any distinctive mark on their robes in 1935?
Yes. The so-called Führer's decree required judges to wear the insignia of the swastika on their robes.
Did you wear such an insignia?
No. I would have been ashamed to wear it.
Did you resign in 1935?
Yes.
Did Ernst Janning wear a swastika on his robe?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Wickert. That's all.
Defense counsel may cross-examine.
Dr. Wickert, you used the phrase, what was necessary for the protection of the country. Would you explain for the tribunal the conditions in Germany at the time National Socialism came to power?
What conditions?
Would you say there was widespread hunger?
In 1933? Yes.
Would you say there was internal disunity?
Yes.
Would you say that National Socialism helped to cure some of these conditions?
Yes, but at a terrible price.
Dr. Wickert, please confine yourself to answering the questions only. Therefore, was it not possible that a judge might wear a swastika and yet work for what he thought was best for his country?
No, it was not possible.
Was there a communist party?
Yes.
Was it the third largest party in Germany?
Yes, it was.
Did they set fire to the Reichstag, one of Germany's most sacred buildings?
That is one interpretation. My interpretation is that the Nazis set fire to it themselves to give the appearance of a national crisis so that they could take the system of justice away from the independent courts and put it in the hands of the dear Führer.
Dr. Wickert, you were not in the administration from the years 1935 to 1943. By your own admission, is it not possible that your view of the administration might be distorted?
No, it is not.
How can you testify to what was going on in the administration if you were not there?
I had friends in the legal administration. There were books, journals.
From books and journals. I see. Dr. Wickert, you refer to novel National Socialist measures introduced, among them sterilization. Are you aware sterilization was not invented by National Socialism, but had been advanced for years before as a weapon in dealing with mentally incompetent and the criminal?
Yes, I am aware of that.
Are you aware that it has advocates among leading citizens in many other countries?
I'm not an expert on sterilization
Then
laws.
permit me to read one to you. This is a High Court opinion upholding a sterilization law in existence in another country. And I quote, "We have seen more than once that the public welfare may call upon the best citizens for their lives. It would be strange indeed if it could not call upon those who already sapped the strength of the state in order to prevent our being swamped by incompetence. It is better for all the world if, instead of waiting to execute the general offspring for crime or to let them starve through their imbecility, society can, through sterilization, prevent those who are manifestly unfit for continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough." End quote. Do you recognize it now, Dr. Wickert?
No, sir, I do not.
Actually, there is no particular reason you should, since the opinion upholds the sterilization law in the state of Virginia of the United States, and was written and delivered by that great American jurist, Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. Now, Dr. Wickert, in view of what you have just learned, can you still say sexual sterilization was a novel National Socialist measure?
Yes, I can say it, because never before has it been used as a weapon against political enemies.
Do you know personally of a case in which someone was sterilized for political reasons?
I know such things were done.
Please answer the question. Do you know of a case?
I do not know a specific name or of a specific date.
That's not the question. I am asking if you have any first-hand personal knowledge of a case.
No, sir. I have no such personal knowledge.
Dr. Wickert, are you aware of the charges in the indictment against Ernst Janning?
Yes.
Can you honestly say he is responsible for them?
Yes, I can.
Dr. Wickert, do you consider yourself free of responsibility?
Yes, I do.
Dr. Wickert, did you ever swear to the civil servant loyalty oath in 1934?
Your Honor, I object. The witness does not have to answer that question. He is not on trial.
All Germany is on trial, Your Honors. This tribunal placed it on trial when it placed Ernst Janning on trial. If responsibility is to be found, the widest latitude is to be permitted.
Objection overruled.
Did you ever swear to the civil servant loyalty oath of 1934?
Everyone did.
We are not interested in what everyone did. We want to know what you did. I will read you the oath from the Reich Law Gazette, March 1933. I swear that I shall be obedient to the leader of the German Reich and people, Adolf Hitler, that I shall be loyal to him, that I will observe the laws, and that I will conscientiously fulfill my duties, so help me God.
Everyone swore to it. It was mandatory.
Yes, but you're a perceptive man, Dr. Wickert. You could see what was coming. You could see that National Socialism was leading Germany to disaster. It was clear to anyone who had eyes and ears. Didn't you realize what it would have meant if you and men like you had refused to swear the oath? It would have meant that Hitler would never have come to absolute power. Why didn't you, Doctor? Can you give us an explanation? Did it have something to do with your pension? Did your pension mean more to you than your country?
Your Honor.
No further questions.
Your Honor, I object to the entire line of questioning and ask that it be stricken from the record.
I thought prosecuting counsel was dedicated to finding responsibility.
Your Honor, I've made an objection.
Prosecution is not interested in finding responsibility?
There is responsibility for more here than swearing to a loyalty oath, and you know it.
There is indeed. There's responsibility for heinous crimes. Crimes that have been charged against some of the most eminent men.
They are all eminent men. Every man who's been in the dock has been an eminent man.
Prosecution has stated it will prove responsibility by evidence.
Defense counsel may be speaking that way because he knows no one who was in the administration will step forward and speak the truth.
Your Honor!
There is one thing that even the German machine with its monumental efficiency has been unable to destroy.
Order!
All the victims. More victims than the world has ever known. They will walk into this courtroom.
Tribunal will now admonish both counsel. It will tolerate nothing like this again. We're not here to listen to outbursts of this kind, but to serve justice. It will not be served by emotions of this kind.
Your Honor, I made an objection.
Objection overruled. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Dr. Wickert, you are excused. You may go.
This is LA TheaterWorks' production of Judgment at Nuremberg by Abby Mann.
This play is sponsored by the California Civil Liberties Public Education Program, a state-funded grant project of the California State Library.
Our story continues next time. I'm Susan Lowenberg, producing director of LA TheaterWorks.